we got something special drilling into all of this Daredevil animation nonsense. 95, 96. So Daredevil appears in today's topic, Season 2, Fantastic Four, ran from 1995 to 1996. September 23, 1995. Episode 14 overall of the series, Episode 1 of Season 2. A blind man shall lead them. Season 2 opens with a Daredevil romp, and I need to talk to you about it. Because when I looked into this episode and his next animated appearance, I had a stark revelation. So let's go.
Quiet on the set!
Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
Action!
See, here's the wild thing. During this time, DC, and we have to measure what Marvel is doing to what DC is doing. DC is long believed to have the better animation period between Marvel Comics and DC Comics. DC's dominance goes from this day and it stretches all the way back to the 70s. That doesn't mean Marvel hasn't had impactful shows. Now, the X-Men the animated series came back. It came back in a big way thanks to Disney Plus. And people were able to put some of those rose-colored lenses on with that series. Because while that series was running, the Spider-Man show was the one with the true story. The Spider-Man one was the one that incorporated nearly the entire... Well, I mean, technically, it did incorporate the entire Marvel Universe. At the time, the X-Men were at the height of the highest-selling comic book ever, but they were also getting their butts kicked on the comic book shelves thanks to Image Comics. And the reason for that is all the X-Men artists left X-Men to form their own company, and they had properties of their own, and they were winning. Cyberforce was winning, Wildcats was winning, but you kind of had Spider-Man survive this era within Marvel Comics of just becoming just a little bit bigger, a little bit more popular. Within the context of the comics, Spider-Man would go through a very controversial, still to this day, storyline called the Clone Saga. But the character would survive that. In actuality, Spider-Man has survived multiple character beat-em-ups, meaning these are the things we don't do with the character. Spider-Man survives it. It doesn't matter. He goes on. And during this time, we had a skidding of what's considered to be some of Marvel's premier properties. Like, everyone right now is marching towards July and it's Fantastic Four versus Superman in live action. And Fantastic Four somewhat is going to become the center of the comic book universe. But at this time, the Fantastic Four animated series that Daredevil's featured on was second fiddle to X-Men the animated series that was on Fox. It was on Saturdays, had a primetime premiere. But there were 3 shows that Marvel had at this time. They had a Hulk syndicated animated series, they had a Fantastic Four, and they had an Iron Man. Each one of those 3 expanded the characters' family or universe. Even the Incredible Hulk started to develop a Hulk family, as they like to call it, like a family of characters. Spider-Man, always being the nucleus of the Marvel Universe, shared everyone. But the Fantastic Four, it's interesting how they roll in other characters. And it pretty much gets right into this episode where we have an opening that I absolutely love. The Fantastic Four blow up, they have lost their powers, and we see Victor Von Doom is a part of it. And along the way, Daredevil pretty much joins the team and helps the team overcome their conflict. And he's Daredevil. He's Daredevil throughout this entire episode, and the Fantastic Four are powerless. When this dropped, there was no fanfare. There was no attention to Daredevil. And this is where we cycle back to what DC was doing at the time. So DC at this time, we know it. Batman, the animated series. later to evolve into Batman, The Adventures of Batman and Robin, later to evolve into Batman Gotham Knights, and later to evolve into Batman Beyond, where I believe even that ran for 3 seasons. So there was this gritty retro, Art Deco retro episodes, good enough to be a stage play run by DC. But they also tried to sneak in Superman, the animated series. It just didn't land. Nobody wanted the action figures, no one cared. Even during this time, the Batman, the animated series, was waning a little bit, even though it had the adulation, it had the artistry, it had the awards, it had the nominations, and it had the fan base. They were pushing a giant action figure line through this series alone. And we really want to say the marketing position and what they found that the audience could tolerate because of Batman the Animated Series, it kind of destroyed the character, because the Dark Knight truly became the absolute center of the of the DC universe, where in contrary, we would get Spider-Man growing to become his center, but being way more friendly to the other superheroes. See, the type of popularity that the Dark Knight has essentially destroyed the superhero universe, because the popularity of Batman can prop up all of DC. Marvel never quite had that. They were very close to the X-Men for 10 years. They were very close to X-Men. Whatever X-Men were doing within Marvel, they could sell that Marvel book. Wolverine being a part of it just makes, it just sweetens that pot. But we have the Fantastic Four, which is from inception. Fantastic Four were the original nucleus, and they're positioned as such. So when we go through this series, we get Black Panther, we get the Inhumans, we get Daredevil, we get the entire scope of the Marvel Universe. We get villains that we absolutely love. We get a lot of Doctor Doom. We get Galactus. We get Silver Surfer. This is the Fantastic Four. And it's very interesting when we put the Fantastic Four in the position of absolute vulnerability. Here we go. Vulnerability. Oh, what the hell? Vulnerability. They're vulnerable. That's what I'm trying to say. And Daredevil comes along as their protector. Later, and this is our next episode, Daredevil would appear in Spider-Man the Animated Series for 2 episodes. Later, that became a DVD release, which was amazing. And in 1996, through Spider-Man and through a bigger storyline, even episode Spider-Man the Animated Series, way more dramatic, way more well written, just more going on than the series. Now, some of this is budgeting, and what's animation budgeting? Well, something like Spider-Man the Animated Series has a full toy line. Now, Toy Biz also had a Fantastic Four toy line, but it was of a different scale. The Spider-Man toy line, its scale complemented X-Men the Animated Series. So everything was interchangeable, and you had like this sprawling toy shelf, or like toy display, whenever you would go to Toys R Us or KB or Kitty City. But the syndicated shows were of a different scale. The Fantastic Four figures, the Hulk figures, the Iron Man figures, all different scale. And that's a big delineation, because it does separate the properties in the audience's mind. It makes Fantastic Four seem second fiddle. Daredevil didn't get an action figure in either of these 2 toy lines. So going back to Batman the Animated Series, see, there's a reason why the Dark Knight resonates with fandom, It's a reason why the average person, the normie, as they like to call him, why it resonates, because he's a character you can reach, like physically and mentally. Daredevil is Marvel's equivalent to that. The idea that he's in the series, just thrown in, and through budgetary reasons, we have limited characters. See, that's the budget difference between the Fantastic Four 95-96 series and Spider-Man, the anime series. These characters take time to design, to hone in, to animate, to draw, and it's just more complicated of a production. We can see the budgetary restraints when we watch this Fantastic Four episodes. We only have a handful of characters in the entire episode. But even with that, there's a sense of wanting more from a blind man should lead them. This is Daredevil's, at this time, biggest animation push. He has a full episode. Previously in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, he literally had 30, 40 seconds of screen time. Here he has a full episode post credits. The opening credits, it's almost all Daredevil. Daredevil, at the end of this, if we get into the end, he does save the day, and we have a little bit of a confrontation between Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom. And the Fantastic Four are powerless, but we get these shots. We get these Frank Miller shots of Daredevil on a tightrope, swinging, being acrobatic, doing the impossible because of his senses. And he sets them up for success. I don't know, AKAPADers. This is a crazy fun episode. We get Matt Murdock. We see Matt Murdock as a lawyer in this. We get a little bit of their, they try and fake their powers along the way. Fantastic Four literally try and fake their powers to defeat Doctor Doom, until they have to get their powers back by beating Doctor Doom. It's a great episode. I enjoyed it a lot. I think there's a little bit of a lesson here, where Marvel not going all in on Daredevil around this time to be a counter to the Dark Knight on animation. I think fandom would have gravitated towards this. The fandom, again, like a lot of the comic book normies, the people who just wanted to watch this stuff. A lot of them were a lot of them were teenagers. It's an easy crossover to go from the Dark Knight from DC and Daredevil in Marvel. Even with budgetary restraints, we see Daredevil in this episode. We don't get him until a year later, till 1996, where he's in 2 episodes of Spider-Man. Now, here's the wild thing, AKAPADers. From that point on, from 1996 on, we don't get Daredevil again till 2003. And lo and behold, it's Daredevil post. It's a year later of Spider-Man taking over the box office, making billions of dollars. Tobey Maguire. And Daredevil was viewed as a second fiddle to that. So even within Daredevil guest appearing in other series, 2 of his animation appearances, he's with Spider-Man. And we have to understand that there was an opportunity to really build a character, because Daredevil, like, again, he's valuable. People like him. They get the character, they understand the character, and he's reachable. And there's so much of that conversation that goes around Spider-Man and Peter Parker, but technically they're not that reachable. Even if we look at how Peter Parker is portrayed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he doesn't go to a normal high school anymore. Like, he goes to like this high school MIT. His girlfriend's like a supermodel, and she's adored, and his friends are all geniuses. Like, it's not the Peter Parker we grew up with. It's not the Peter Parker that's in that Tobey Maguire movie. But Daredevil has a plight, and we saw it with that Netflix series. So a lot of this comes full circle when we study the media appearances, because the media appearances illustrate the concept to us of what could have been with some of these characters, and how we tease a character through a long enough timeline. We test the audience, we test the audience, we test the audience. And that is the true benefit of the DC and Marvel universe, to where Superman, the Man of Steel, animation-wise, didn't resonate until Justice League Unlimited years later. And that mostly was because Superman is being played off of so many different characters. We get to hone down and scope down, and like it gets a little bit microscopic of why people might like that character. See, they may not like him solo. They want to see Soup with other characters, which is, coincidental. Also, to a fair take, that seems to be the James Gunn position. He's putting the Man of Steel with as many different characters as possible to play him off of them. That could work, and you heard it here first. But AKAPADers, this episode's available on Disney Plus. I implore you, the way how I would like you to study this is watch some of that Netflix series and watch this, and you can see the disconnect. And when you realize how good that Netflix show is and why, and when it kind of, when something's good, it pulses through you, let that happen, and then go into this and try and see what could have been. Because whenever we see Daredevil in this series, they're trying to put him as a solo character. They're trying to show you why he's cool solo. And Daredevil, dare I say, I always said this, Daredevil has a rogues gallery equal to Spidey. Just no one ever gave it credit, which is wild to me. Alright, AK Powers, a little bit of a long one. Next episode will be Spider-Man and the animated series. There's 2 episodes of that. And, we have the Kingpin in that. We have a extended Marvel universe in those 2 episodes. If it's season 3, it's Sins of the Father, which runs. That's a storyline that runs throughout the entire series. And we're wrapping up. Next week's Daredevil's the latest episode. But what we're wrapping up essentially, though, is the possibility of Daredevil breaking out into his own solo. And we don't get it until the Netflix series, because the movie doesn't help either. All right, AK Powders, rock and roll. Love you.
Okay, that's a wrap.